Hey guys, okay, so over the next few days we will be making a couple of videos for regarding the CBSE topics for science and maths. Now these videos are meant for people who don't particularly listen in class, and I urge you all to not use this as your study material. Just use this as your reference material for the exams. By the way, this is for the third term only. Okay guys, so for today we'll be doing chapter 9, that's Hereditary and Evolution, and this is the last chapter in the series for science. And I'm really sorry, but we won't be able to do chapter 8, you guys, due to many reasons, but you guys will have to go ahead and read it from the textbook. Okay, so let's start off with a very basic topic. What has more variation, sexual or asexual reproduction? What creates more variations? Well, in asexual reproduction, basically only one individual is creating another. So in this case, you have, say, a weird looking amoeba. Now you would get two amoebas from this particular one amoeba. That's something like this, whatever. You actually have a whole bunch of steps in between. I'm not going to show that, but anyways, this one particular individual creates these two individuals called daughter cells. Now due to the fact that there'll be less inaccuracies in during the DNA copying, these two cells will show just about the same traits as this particular cell, even though there isn't much, but yeah, anyways, they'll show that. Next we go on to sexual reproduction. Now during that, two individuals are involved, and this is the reason why you have multiple variations in the traits. Like for example, that's one reason you have your earlobes. The little, you have your ear right here. Yeah, I know this doesn't look anything like ear, but this little small part away, that's your earlobe. Some people don't have that, some people have that. It depends. Then you have your eye color. Some people have brown, some people have green, blue, whatever. Okay, so now let's go on to hereditary and various traits. Inherited traits, that's basically transmitted traits. Now what is hereditary? Well, it is a transmission of characteristics from one generation to the next, and so on and so on and so on. So basically, if this one generation has good adaptability to heat, the next generation will have it, the next generation will have it, the next now sometimes this generation will not have it. So then basically the next generation from here won't have it at all, or they may have it but very less, a very small amount, very small adaptability. Now you have two types of traits, favorable and unfavorable. Now say you are in a very cold place like Antarctica. Okay, over here a favorable trait would be the ability to actually withstand the cold. An unfavorable condition would be freeze up instantly. That's about it. Okay, so now that we're done with that, let's move on to, yes, as I was saying, let's move on to the various rules for the inheritance of traits. Now this one person called Gregor Johann Mendel, he was actually he used to live in a monastery, I believe. I am not entirely sure. 1 minute. Yes, I was right. So he had gone back to his monastery after failing in the examination for the teaching certificate from his university. Now in his monastery he started growing pea plants. Now instead of doing the typical thing what a gardener would do, just growing pea plants and harvesting them and all that, he decided to look at this at a biological way. Now for instance, you have two pea plants. I'm not going to draw the actual pea plants because they're big, so they're hard, not big. My bad. and you have one small pea plant. You have a big pea plant, one small pea plant. Now these two have the same age, okay? And now say if they were to actually make individuals. Now the genetic traits for this particular pea plant would be T and T, that's capital T and capital T, and this one would be small t and small t. Now if they were to reproduce and make various plants, you would see that you would get mostly, it's like you have this and then into this and this into this and then this into this as well as this. So no, my bad, sorry guys, you would just get this into this, this into this. So basically you would be left with 4 tall pea plants. None of them will be short. However, all of their genetic the character would be T with small t, T with small t, T with small t. This looks like a J. I don't know why this thing is messing me up, man, badly. There you go, property, boom. Okay, and basically over here what the capital T stands for is taller plants, and what the small t stands for is shorter plants. Okay, so now say if one of these, oh man, wrong tool. Now say if one of these were to reproduce, okay, 1 minute. The plant formed would be, say you have two plants, okay, that's basically 2 tall plants, okay, and their genetic this characteristic is TT. Now you would get one perfectly tall plant, one tall plant, one more tall plant, and then one perfectly small plant. So you would get something like this. So remember, pure tall, that's TT. Then this one is tall, but its genetic code is something like this. Then you have one more, that's TT. However, you should not write it like this, it's usually represented like this. And now you have the small plant, that's small t. Now why does this happen? Why, even though there's a small t over here, which means it should be a small plant, why is it still a tall plant? Well, it's quite simple. The plant will actually just prefer to go with the more dominant gene over here, and the more dominant gene over here would be this. Oh yeah, would be these. Actually in this case it's both of them, so it's a pure tall plant. That's nice. Okay, so that's actually it with the, yeah, that's actually it with the inheritance of traits and stuff. Okay, so now why does all of this happen? Why do we have tall, why do you have short, and all of those? Maybe a good thing, maybe a defect, maybe a good trait, sorry, maybe a good trait, maybe a bad trait. Why do you have all of this? Well, you can say that this is actually due to our DNA, due to the gene present in our DNA. Now our DNA contains information to make certain proteins, and what a gene basically is, not this, never ever, never this, whole different story. But anyways, what a gene is basically, if you were to say a gene of a protein like auxin. Now we all know auxin is the growth hormone present in plants, and the more auxin present in the plants, the taller the plants will be, unless it'll be smaller like this. Okay, so now if you were to say gene of that auxin, of the protein called auxin, well, it would be basically the information in the DNA required to make the protein called auxin. Oh sorry, not protein, hormone called auxin. So now whether or not whether or not auxin will be produced. That's actually not whether or not, but how much auxin will be produced depends on the enzyme required to make it. And so basically, if the enzyme works more efficiently, you have more auxin, leading to taller plants. If the enzyme works less efficiently, you have less auxin, leading to shorter plants. Okay, yes, that's about it for hereditary. Now we'll go on to gender determination. Yes, I said it right, I hope. Okay, so basically before we are born, we are not really boys or girls. Like during the first week or so of pregnancy, we are not really boys or girls. We just have one X chromosome. Now we all know that boys have X and Y chromosome, and girls have a perfect pair, that's X and X chromosome. Now we actually get the X chromosome from our mother, and basically our gender is determined by our father. If we are given a Y chromosome, we'll be basically boys. It's this. And if we are given an X chromosome, we'll be girls. Now let's move on to evolution. Okay, now nature has its own way to control the population. Now we have three types. One is natural selection, genetic drift, and non-heritable variation. Okay, so now we'll go for natural selection at first of all. So over here you can consider two types of beetles. One is green, I'll just represent green with a circle, green, and a dot will be for the red beetles. Now they all live in a bush, and over a couple of generations, crows come and start eating the beetles. So first of all, I'm going to draw the first generation. Now you have a whole lot of red beetles, like a lot of them, and maybe only say 2 green beetles. Now remember, they all are living in a bush only, so basically it's easier for the green beetles to survive because they can blend in the bush itself, while the red beetles are quite easy to spot by the crows, so they'll be eaten. So this one goes, all of them goes, and basically in the next generation you'll be left with very few red beetles and mostly like green beetles now. Where a lot of green beetles, maybe, yeah, about this much. And in the third generation, that's again, crows keep on picking on the beetles and all that, they keep on eating the beetles. Third generation, you'll have even more or less red beetles. You may have like at max 2 or 3. And in the fourth gen, finally, you won't have any red beetles at all. You'll be like having a colony of only green beetles. So this right here is natural selection. So basically nature has okay, fine, you can't call these the chosen ones, but anyways, I'm going to call them the chosen ones because it sounds more awesome that way. But anyways, so basically nature has selected these to live. Nah, just kidding with you all. So this is due to certain conditions that actually arise, that just selects a couple of variations in the beetles and produces more offsprings in the coming generation. That's it. Next we move on to genetic drift. Now say you have the same example as before. You have one or two green beetles, and now this actually is not like it's not attacked by crows or anything. They live in perfect harmony. So now what will happen is the red beetles, they are quite dominant over here, so they will keep on just reproducing, like a whole lot of them, and maybe a couple of green beetles over here. Now one day an elephant just walks by from nowhere. I don't know how. It just walks by because it can. It's like total boss. It just walks by, and this entire area is taken, actually maybe this big area is taken by its foot, and now these lucky 3 over here survive. Now this is basically called genetic drift. This is like a major change that has nothing to do with gene at all. It's actually because of some sort of weird freakish coincidence that only these three survive, and basically the next generations to come you would get only green. Now again, this can depend on a couple of adventurers, you can say. Maybe a red beetle from another colony decides to come, hey guys, what's up, I'm just here party nicely, chill over here, whatever. So then you may have a couple of red beetles in the upcoming generations, but what, you don't really need to worry about that in detail. So next, how about we go into non-heritable variation. Okay, so I'll be using the beetles again, and yes, I know it's quite annoying, but I really can't think of anything right now. So say this time we won't actually go for green or red, anything specific, just go for random stuff. You have green, red, blue, whatever you want. This has nothing to do with crows eating or elephants stomping or giraffe stomping or hippopotamus stomping or hippopotamus eating, whatever. It has nothing to do with that. Now say these guys, they live in a bush. They exhaust the bush to such a point that it's like maybe just sticks that just pop out of the bush from here and there, here and there. That's it. You don't have any leaves on the bush. And now these guys are lazy to actually move the colony. So basically what happens is these guys will become underfed, and this will lead to smaller beetles. Like, yeah, smaller, tiny. Because of malnutrition, you get very small beetles over here, and so many small. All of these I'm drawing away because I'm just bored. There you go. Okay, all of these are small beetles now. Compared to these, they are relatively smaller. Now, over the next 2-3 generations, these guys, they're like, okay, fine. You know what? We really need to move on to another bush. And then the guy who says that dies, and everyone in a big dramatic scene, he died, we must move on, we shall never forget you, brother. And they move on to a new bush. They become healthy again, they become nice and big, and well, that's about it, they get healthy. And so then you get your original original beetles, I guess, back. Now until here, and actually this particular part is called the non-heritable variation. So basically this is nothing caused due to gene or anything, it's just that they're lazy and they don't want to move. That's it. Okay, so now how about we move on to inherited and acquired traits. So now, what are acquired and inherited traits? Well, what are the differences? Actually no, let's start with the definition. Well, acquired traits are basically traits you have acquired over your lifetime. That's basically, maybe you got an ear piercing or nose piercing, or you tried to dye your hair or anything like that. Or I've heard of some people who actually dye their eyes as well. That's rather weird, but you can even consider that an acquired trait. Now, inherited traits are basically traits you get from your parents, like say your eye color, your natural eye color, or your natural hair color. Sometimes even your intelligence. I mean, like, woohoo, my parents are smart, so I am smart as well. Okay, so now that we've gone on to the definition and the differences, actually, you know what, I'm not really happy with what I gave for acquired traits. In the textbook it's mentioned over that change in non-reproductive tissues can be passed on to the DNA of the germ cells. Therefore the experiences of an individual during his lifetime cannot be passed on to its progeny and cannot direct evolution. If we breed a group of mice, all okay, fine. So basically in the textbook they've mentioned that, say if you were to cut the tails off of a mice and you were to make them breed with each other, now the next generation would actually have a tail. They won't be like tailless mice that are just walking around, potato mices. Okay, that looks weird. I'm gonna draw a nice little potato mice. That looks, what is this? That's weird. I can't draw, sorry guys. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, in the textbook they mentioned basically they mentioned that acquired traits are basically traits that do not actually change the look or whatever of the next generation. It only messes around with your current generation, that's basically you. And inherited traits, you know, they go from generation to generation to generation after generation. Woo! Alright, next we move on to the evolution and classification. Okay, so now to understand this, let's go into characteristics. What are characteristics? Well, basically they are our behavior, the appearance, everything like that. Basically ourselves, any sort of modification on our body is called a characteristic. Well, when I say modification, I mean inherited modification, not just, you know, a protrusion, a bone protrusion or whatever, nothing like that. So now I'll give you a quick example. We have hands, we have 2 hands and 2 legs. This is a characteristic. Plants can do photosynthesis. This is a characteristic. And yes, that's about it. So now how about we go on to, okay, this is a quick definition I'm going to write away about homologous and analogous organs. Basically, homologous organs are organs having the same basic structure that are modified to perform different functions, and analogous organs are organs that look similar but do not do and do the same function but do not have the same origin. I'll write an example of that as well. So yeah. Okay guys, so I apparently forgot to go for this one small topic called speciation or speciation. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but basically it means the formation of a new species due to certain conditions, like for example geo-isolation. Now what is geo-isolation? Basically it is the isolation of a species due to any kind of geographical condition, like say a river is formed or a mountain range is there between two species or whatever, anything like that. Okay, so now that we are done with that, let's move on to fossils. Now what are fossils? Basically they are dead remains of animals. They can be bones, actually they can only be bones. Then sometimes you can find like fossilized cells or something like that, inside stone and many things like that. So how do scientists actually determine how old the fossils are? Well, they basically just check how many layers of rocks have been formed. Like for example, if the fossil was found say around here, yeah, now say many layers of rocks have been formed over it. So from this scientists can infer that maybe 1,000,000 years have gone, or maybe 1,000 years have gone by, something like that. So now this is one way of tracing not tracing the evolution, but like seeing how old a fossil is. Well, next you have this topic called evolution by stages. That topic is relatively easy, so I'm not going to go into detail in it. It's just basically about the eye. They give an example about the eye and how wild cabbage was made into broccoli and cabbage, red cabbage, and yeah, that's it, and cauliflower. Okay, so now let's go into human evolution. Well, many scientists have actually found ways to determine how and from whom humans have evolved. One is by basically checking the DNA of the humans. Then secondly is by time dating, by studying the fossils left by our ancient, like very old people, maybe thousands of years ago, people who lived at that time, by studying their fossils. Yes, that's actually about it with human evolution. And with this, we are finally done with the chapter itself. Now I'm sorry if I couldn't give much information on say any topic you thought was interesting, but well, like, this is not exactly a full-on detailed discussion on the topic, so yeah, that's it. Okay, so if you've been listening, you should have understood which type of reproduction creates more variations and why. What are the types of traits? What is hereditary? What are the methods of controlling population made by nature? And what is evolution? Thank you for watching the video.